Welcome to Texas Honda Channel. If you're new here, definitely consider subscribing. So I spent a total of $249.93 for the intercooler piping, log manifold, and the adapter plate to adapt the TD05H turbo. Now I got this turbo for trade work I did, so it didn't cost me any out-of-pocket money. I basically painted a subscriber's car and he gave me this and a little bit of cash. This line right here was absolutely free from a friend, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy, located here in Texas. Really appreciate giving me this line and some other couplers and stuff like that. So basically the turbo and the line was free. I spent, I believe it was like 10 bucks to make this from, it was probably less than $10 to make this T-fitting. This will go. Alright, so what you're seeing on screen is the information you're going to need to build your own T-piece if you want to go that route. It's a lot cheaper than buying them. You can get this at Ace Hardware, Home Depot, or stores that are like that. Basically, you'll have 3 female ends at an 1/8, and then you'll have an 1/8 male that screws into one of the spots. And that's exactly what I did here, and it works perfectly fine. Where the oil pressure sensor is, oil pressure sensor will go here, this will go into the block, and then the oil feed line will go in here. And that just goes and screws into the back of your block. So basically we'll go ahead and get all this installed. I know I'm still missing the Hondata S300, which is the preferred ECU for me. I have some 525cc injectors a subscriber sent to me, Black Moon Builds. Thank you for sending me that and the blow-off valve. I'll be using that blow-off valve since I didn't buy one. That didn't come with one, so I'll be using that blow-off valve. So far this is the cheapest turbo kit I've ever owned, and it should work pretty well. So we're gonna go ahead and install it and see exactly what we're missing, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I'm gonna remove the bumper. Luckily I have quick releases. I'm gonna undo these pieces and take the front bumper off, take the intake pipe off and the exhaust, and then we'll go over the intercooler kit and I'll show you all the details on that. Alright, so you're going to need to remove the manifold. Some of these manifolds are already replaced, mostly on Hondas. You always find one with aftermarket headers, but that'll help you in that case. But if you're completely factory manifold like this one is, these bolts can be hard to remove, so you're going to need to spray them with like a PB blaster or some Best Line or something to remove the rust. You'll have to disconnect the O2 sensors, that way you don't get snagged up on them. So that's the first thing you need to do, is remove those O2 sensor connectors and just let them dangle down. Now on the blocks right here, they have a spot where there's bolts that hold it to the block. Those are already removed on this one. I'm going to go ahead and remove the 9 12mm bolts, and then we'll go underneath the car and remove the ones that we need to down there. Now that I got the bolts off up here, I'm going to go ahead and focus my attention down to the bottom side of the manifold. Alright, so now we're underneath the car. This is the down pipe where it connects to what would be a catalytic converter. In my case is a test pipe. There's a 12mm here and a 14mm here. You'll remove both 12s and both 14s, and then this will come loose. Now typically right here there's a bracket that has 2 12mm nuts that holds it to the engine. I've already removed that in the past, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the 2 12s and the 2 14s. Now that you've removed those bolts, you can go ahead and pull the manifold down. Alright, now that we've got that out, we have plenty of room to put the turbo and turbo manifold in and make sure everything mocks up pretty good. To put the log on and see how it does. Everything seems to be bolting up pretty good, so that's definitely the right manifold. Alright, now that we mocked the manifold up, we know it fits. We're going to go ahead right here and take the adapter and we're going to install it. Now this did come with a gasket, so we're going to put that on first. Alright, so here is the gasket. Now I'm glad they sent me one of these versus those crushed style, because these metal ones are a lot better. and they don't blow out nearly as easy. Alright, so I'll be using this Permatex thread locker right here on the studs. This will keep it from backing out as we drive down the road. Stuff works pretty good. Now for this part, I'll be using a washer and then a lock washer plus the bolt. That way they won't vibrate loose. Alright, now that we got that all adapted, we're going to go ahead and test fit it on the car. Alright, so it turns out that it's hitting right here. I'm just going to have to grind this piece off and it should go in. Alright, so it's in there. It's really close to the AC compressor, so I might have to get an aftermarket downpipe just to kind of make it a little bit more narrow. But overall, it does technically fit. I just do have to make some modifications. So now we're going to look at the intercooler kit. Alright, so this is the intercooler kit. This is the pipe that goes right to the throttle. This is where the blow-off valve goes. We'll be using some gasket sealer around this since it didn't come with the O-ring, which will work perfectly fine for sealing the blow-off valve. Now, if I run a lot of boost, I will have to get an actual gasket, but for 5 to 10 pounds, it'll be fine. But yeah, it came with all the pipes, and they're wrinkle black, a nice little coating on them. Really nice because it has some pretty thick rows with good cooling fins. So this will actually work really good for cool the hot air down pretty good. So we're going to mount this up on the front of the car with these mounting tabs. We'll just be drilling holes and using bolts in these. I will eventually end up making brackets and welding them to the car, but for now this will work fine, the method we're going to use. So let's get started on putting all this in. Alright, so as for the intercooler piping, over here we actually have the bend which will go around like this. You'll adapt it right here using the clamps provided. These right here are the best type of clamps you can get for a turbo system. They're very strong and they hold up really well. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the couplers that are the appropriate size and adapt these together. So that's looking good. Now we'll go ahead and do the passenger side and we'll get the intercooler all mocked up. Right here is the pipe that will have the blow-off valve. It'll go like this. I put the couplers and the clamps already on it. It'll be adapted up here at the throttle. Alright, so I found a light. I'm going to use these Allen screws and put the blow-off valve on. Right now the blow-off valve's on. This is all tightened down. I'm going to focus down here and attach the lower part of the intercooler piping. Alright, got that connected. Now we'll move to the front. Now that's basically how it's going to look once I drill the holes through the very top of the support bar, and then there will be bolts that hold it to that. Then we can mount up the driver's side. Alright, so I found two bolts that actually have decent length to them that'll fit through there. These are actually bolts from an AC unit on a Civic. They work pretty good, so we're going to use these. Alright, I finished the driver's side. Unfortunately the video cut out. Basically just bolted this side up. It was pretty smooth and easy. As for the bottom of the turbo, I still have to make a pipe that bolts right here to this flange off the downpipe to go back to the catalytic converter or the test pipe. Now here's the oil drain. This is where the oil drains out of the turbo and back into the oil pan. Now I need to make a spot up high. That way when it drains, it just drains right in. You don't want it to be down low because then the oil can back up through it and cause a flow issue. Alright, so this here is the oil return that's factory. Up here is where it bolts. I'm basically just going to chop it off right here with a Sawzall and chop off this end with a Sawzall. That way it's just the nub sticking out. And then I'm going to take the oil pan off, drill 3 holes, and bolt this thing in there like that. That way once it's bolted there and once it's bolted here, I'll just run a rubber high pressure hose so that it connects the two of them. So I'm going to have to take the oil pan off, drill some holes, gasket seal some stuff, and we should be good to go on the oil return. Alright, so I already installed the oil drain on the turbo. I already cut the line, so I've got 2 pieces. One's already on the turbo. Now for this piece, I'm going to go ahead, I've already cleaned off part of the oil pan. I'm going to mark where I want it, and then we can take the oil pan, drain all the fluid out, and drill the holes that we need to drill. Now once you've got the oil pan off like I do, make sure to have something underneath to catch all the oil that'll drip off of it. A large drip pan would be preferred, but if you don't have that, just put something down to catch most of the oil. It will start slowly dripping, so just be warned on that. Alright, this is a really good time to make sure everything's lined up properly. So you'll basically put the thing over, making sure that all the holes are lining up before you drill, because you only get one shot at this, and if you screw it up you got to go get another oil pan. So make sure that all the yellow dots are in the right spot, and this one was not. So I'm going to go ahead and move it over a little bit. We will be cleaning this out afterwards, but we want to reduce the amount of metal shavings that get in here. That way we don't have those circulating in the engine, because that'll cause some rod bearing failure. So I'm going to go ahead and drill these holes. Alright, there it is. The holes are drilled. Everything's lining up absolutely perfect. So now we can clean this thing up while it's out, might as well. And then we'll apply some black gasket maker and bolt this thing in. If my welder wasn't out of wire, I'd actually tack weld these nuts on the back side, but I'm out of wire and I'm out of money, so I'm just going to tighten them down really tight. I'm going to put some Loctite on them. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this thing up, get the Loctite on these, put this all back in, and then we'll reinstall this back on. Alright, so I double nutted it just to be sure, used Loctite, and everything's looking good. So now we're ready to put this back on the car. The gasket on the car is fairly new, so I'm just gonna gasket seal all the way around and then bolt this thing back up. Alright, so I connected the oil drain and everything's looking good. I painted the oil pan while I was down here. Thought, why not? Make it look a little bit better. Everything's tightened up, all the bolts are in, and it's good to go. So we'll put some oil in it tomorrow. So now we'll focus our attention towards the oil feed line. Right here is the CV shaft, and above the CV shaft is the oil filter. Now above the oil filter is this sensor here. Now you'll disconnect the single wire that's on it, and you will remove this sensor. This is a 24 millimeter. So get yourself a 24 millimeter socket, stick the 24 millimeter socket on there and loosen it up. And this is where your oil feed line will run. This sensor will plug into that oil feed line housing, and I'll show you that in just a moment. All right, so here's the T-piece. This is a male 8th, this is a female 8th, and this is a female 8th. So I got a female 8th three-way, put a male 8th in, and this is the oil sending unit. We will put some thread tape on this before it's official, but you'll basically just screw it in like this, tighten it down. Doesn't have to be done outside the car, it just is easier. But you'll take this and you'll screw it into the block, obviously putting some thread tape on there, and then your oil feed line that goes to the turbo will come out here and go to the turbo, and then you plug your sensor back in. That's basically what it should look like after it's all done. I'm going to put the new oil filter on, and we'll put oil in it tomorrow and fire it up. Alright, so I have to trim the bumper right here, that way that it can bolt up to the car, because right here is touching the intercooler. Alright, there it is back on. Doesn't look too bad. You can see the intercooler from behind. If I really wanted to go sleeper, I could paint it black. The gap right here is my issue. It's very annoying, and it's kind of pushed in the bumper a little bit. So I'm going to have to figure that out, probably scoot the intercooler back just a little bit, and then it'll be good. Alright, so it's been raining here. It's finally stopped, so the exhaust manifold is nice and rusted, but we got all this stuff done. Went and bought some vacuum line, and I plugged it in back here, the back side of the intake manifold, ran it directly to the blow-off valve. Down at the turbo, it goes right off the wastegate to the turbo. Got some oil in it now, so we're ready to fire it up and see how it sounds. So go ahead. Make sure there's no leaks. Leaking. The ground's wet from the rain, but it sounds good. We do have to get an aftermarket downpipe so that we have more clearance, and that way we can connect this to the back half of the Yanaka exhaust. But we don't have a boost gauge, but we're gonna go take it down the street anyways. I prefer to have a tune, so if you're gonna do this, make sure to get a tune before you drive it all over God's creation. We're running off wastegate pressure, so it's running off the factory internal wastegate, so it should be like 8 psi or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but we're gonna go ahead and take it down the street and see how it does. So if it blows up, guys, I'll just swap it out and you guys will have more content, but definitely don't recommend driving it without a boost gauge, because that is a very bad idea. I'm not going to get on it too long, but I want to hear that blow-off valve and I want to hear that turbo spool. Ooh, that sounds so good. Oh, I love how it sounds. All right, so here we go. We're gonna get on it a little bit. Oh my Lanta, that sounds so amazing. Yes, I said oh my Lanta. Let's do it again. Jeez. That turbo sounds absolutely wonderful. Sounds really good. Well, I'm impressed with it. I'm gonna let it sit and cool down for a minute since we don't have the coolant lines connected to the turbo, but it should be fine. We do have a little bit of oil around the feed line. I think I'm just gonna get an entirely brand new feed line. This one was free and it's a little abused, but that's pretty easy. But definitely getting a boost gauge and a Honda S300 and converting it to OBD1, that way we can get a good tune on it, because I don't want to blow it up, but if it happens, it happens. But this blow-off valve sounds absolutely beautiful, so I want to thank you again, Black Moon Builds, for the blow-off valve. It sounds fantastic, and I highly recommend this intercooler kit for anyone that's wanting to turbo, because it's pretty straightforward, bolt-on, real easy, and it seems to be holding up pretty good. So link will be in the description for that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This one's taken me quite a while to do. I've got over 9 hours worth of record time, so I probably have at least 8 hours worth of editing to do, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. I still have a few other things to do, like get the intake pipe ran across with the filter, but I have to get a slim fan before I do that. But we have the AC and the turbo, and I'm happy. The automatic did pretty good. It will be getting manual swaps, so it won't be staying like this forever, so definitely stay tuned to the channel. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and drop me a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. If you aren't following me on Instagram, you should do so, because I've been posting updates off of YouTube on Instagram. Link will be in the description for my Instagram. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless.